The individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe, Nietzsche wrote, a sentiment that resonates even more profoundly in our age of information overload and echo chambers. Are you weary of the ceaseless clamor of opinions, the subtle pressures to conform, the feeling of being adrift in a sea of borrowed ideas? This video is your compass, your map to navigate the labyrinth of Nietzsche's thought, and ultimately to forge your own path to radical intellectual independence. Nietzsche's name often conjures images of nihilism, a bleak landscape of meaninglessness, or a ruthless will to power, devoid of ethical considerations. These are caricatures, shadows cast by a philosophy that demands careful engagement, a willingness to grapple with uncomfortable truths. We are not here to offer easy answers or comforting platitudes. Instead, we embark on a journey to unveil the hidden depths of Nietzsche's wisdom, the tools he provides for dismantling intellectual dependence and cultivating genuine self-reliance. Imagine yourself standing at the entrance of a vast labyrinth, its corridors twisting and turning, its purpose shrouded in mystery. The minotaur of intellectual conformity lurks within, ready to devour those who lose their way. But fear not, for you are not without guidance. In this video, we will unravel 5 core concepts that serve as your Ariadne's thread, leading you through the complexities of Nietzsche's thought and out into the clear light of intellectual autonomy. First, we will confront the concept of perspectivism, the understanding that all knowledge is interpretation, colored by our individual experiences and biases. How can you discern truth when every perspective is inherently subjective? Next, we will explore the master-slave morality, a framework for understanding the hidden power dynamics that shape our values and beliefs. Are you truly free, or are you unknowingly living by the dictates of others? Then, we will delve into the concept of the Übermensch, often mistranslated as Superman, but more accurately understood as the individual who transcends conventional morality and creates their own values. What does it mean to overcome yourself, to become who you are truly meant to be? We will then turn to Amor Fati, the love of fate, embracing all that life throws our way, both the joys and the sorrows, as essential components of our personal growth. Can you find meaning in suffering? Finally, we will grapple with the eternal recurrence, the thought experiment that asks us to imagine living our lives exactly as they are, over and over again, for all eternity. Would you welcome this prospect with joy or with dread? These 5 concepts are not mere intellectual exercises. They are keys to unlocking your own intellectual independence, to forging your own values, and to living a life of purpose and meaning beyond the confines of conventional thought. Prepare yourself to question everything, to challenge your assumptions, and to embark on a journey of profound self-discovery. The labyrinth awaits. Are you ready to enter? Let us begin our exploration with a concept that is perhaps the most widely misunderstood and often feared: the will to power. The very phrase conjures images of ruthless ambition, of crushing one's opponents in a relentless pursuit of dominance. But this is a profound distortion, a shadow obscuring the true essence of Nietzsche's vision. How often have you felt a subtle pressure to dim your own light, to suppress your desires, to conform to the expectations of others? This fear of asserting your will, of embracing your own power, often stems from a deeply ingrained belief that power is inherently corrupt, that to seek it is to invite moral compromise. But what if true power lies not in controlling others, but in mastering oneself? The will to power in its purest form is not a drive for external domination, but an internal force, a fundamental striving for growth, for self-overcoming, for the realization of one's full potential. It is the engine that drives the acorn to become the oak, the caterpillar to transform into the butterfly. It is the creative impulse that fuels the artist, the scientist, the philosopher, the individual who dares to challenge the status quo and create something new. Imagine a river constantly seeking to carve its own path through the landscape. It encounters obstacles, rocks, fallen trees, dams, but it does not surrender. Instead, it adapts, it finds new ways to flow, it transforms the very landscape around it. This is the essence of the will to power, the unwavering commitment to pursue one's core values, to overcome resistance, and to shape the world in accordance with one's own vision. But how do we apply this concept in our own lives? It begins with identifying your core values, those principles that resonate most deeply with your soul. What truly matters to you? What are you willing to fight for? Once you have identified these values, pursue them with unwavering commitment, transforming every obstacle into an opportunity for growth. Do not be afraid to assert your will, to embrace your own power. But remember, true power lies not in controlling others, but in mastering yourself. Cultivate your inner strength, develop your talents, and strive to become the best version of yourself. For in the end, the greatest act of power is the act of self-creation. Is there an ocean inside you longing to be unleashed? Now, let us turn to a thought experiment that is both terrifying and liberating: the eternal recurrence. Imagine Nietzsche challenges us that a demon were to appear before you one night and whisper these words: "This life as you now live it and have lived it, you will have to live once more and innumerable times more, and there will be nothing new in it, but every pain and every joy and every thought and sigh and everything unutterably small or great in your life will have to return to you, all in the same succession and sequence. Would you welcome this prospect with joy, or would you recoil in horror?" This is the ultimate test of self-affirmation, the crucible in which we confront the true meaning of our lives. How often do we shy away from the present moment, longing for a different past or a more promising future? How often do we fill our lives with distractions, avoiding the difficult questions that lie beneath the surface? The fear of facing the potential meaninglessness of existence, the responsibility of creating our own values, can be overwhelming. It is tempting to cling to comforting illusions, to surrender to the dictates of others, to avoid the arduous task of self-overcoming. But Nietzsche offers us a different path, a path of radical acceptance, of embracing every aspect of our lives, both the joys and the sorrows, as essential components of our personal growth. The eternal recurrence is not a curse, but a challenge, an invitation to live each moment as if it were the only moment, to make choices that we can affirm for all eternity. Imagine living your life exactly as it is, infinitely repeated. Would you change anything? Would you pursue different goals, cultivate different relationships, embrace different values? This thought experiment reveals our true priorities, stripping away the superficial desires and the borrowed beliefs that often cloud our judgment. It forces us to confront the consequences of our actions, to take responsibility for our choices, and to live in accordance with our deepest values. That was life? Nietzsche asks. Well then, once more, this is the affirmation of the eternal recurrence, the embrace of our destiny, the unwavering commitment to live a life that is worthy of infinite repetition. Can you face your life with all its imperfections and say, "Yes, I choose this," again and again, for all eternity? Are you courageous enough to embrace your fate? Now we arrive at a concept that is both profoundly comforting and intensely challenging. Amor Fati, the love of fate. How often do we rail against the injustices of life, lamenting our misfortunes and wishing for a different past? How often do we define ourselves by our external circumstances, feeling like victims of forces beyond our control? This tendency to see ourselves as passive recipients of fate rather than active agents in our own lives can lead to feelings of powerlessness and despair. But Nietzsche offers us a different perspective, a radical embrace of all that life throws our way, both the good and the bad, the joys and the sorrows. Amor Fati is not passive resignation. It is not a fatalistic acceptance of whatever comes our way. It is an active engagement with life, a conscious choice to love our destiny, to embrace our imperfections, and to use our challenges as opportunities for growth and self-discovery. Imagine Imagine a sculptor working with a flawed piece of marble. The stone is cracked, it is veined with impurities, it is far from perfect, but the sculptor does not despair. Instead, they see the potential within the flawed stone. They embrace its imperfections, and they use them as inspiration for their art. They carve away the excess, they polish the rough edges, and they transform the flawed piece of marble into a masterpiece, a work of art that is all the more beautiful for its imperfections. This is the essence of Amor Fati, the ability to transform suffering into strength, to find beauty in imperfection, and to create meaning from adversity. When faced with a challenge, when confronted with a setback, ask yourself, what can I learn from this? How can I use this experience to become stronger, more resilient, more compassionate? How can I transform this obstacle into an opportunity for growth? Embrace your fate, love your destiny, and use your challenges as fuel for your creative fire. For in the end, it is not what happens to us that defines us, but how we respond to what happens to us. Can you embrace your imperfections, love your destiny, and transform your suffering into strength? Are you ready to become the sculptor of your own life? Let us now grapple with one of Nietzsche's most challenging and often misinterpreted concepts, Perspectivism. How often do we find ourselves locked in conflict, clinging to our own beliefs and dismissing the perspectives of others? How often do we fall prey to dogmatic thinking, convinced that we possess the one and only truth? This intellectual rigidity, this inability to reconcile conflicting viewpoints, can lead to frustration, division, and a profound misunderstanding of the world around us. It is tempting to cling to simplistic explanations, to seek refuge in comforting certainties, to avoid the arduous task of critical thinking. Perspectivism, however, challenges this tendency, urging us to recognize the subjective nature of all knowledge, the inherent limitations of our own perspectives. It is not a rejection of objective truth, but a recognition that truth is multifaceted, that it is revealed through the interplay of different viewpoints. Imagine a diamond, its many facets reflecting light in different ways, each facet revealing a unique aspect of the diamond's beauty. To see only one facet is to miss the full picture, to grasp only a partial understanding of the diamond's true nature. Similarly, truth is not a monolithic entity, but a complex interplay of perspectives, each colored by our individual experiences, biases, and beliefs. To understand the world, we must actively seek out diverse viewpoints, challenge our own assumptions, and cultivate intellectual humility. Ask yourself, what biases might be influencing my perspective? What assumptions am I making? What other viewpoints might be valid, even if they differ from my own? By embracing perspectivism, we cultivate empathy, we deepen our understanding of others, and we open ourselves to new possibilities. We recognize that our own perspective is but one piece of the puzzle, and that by engaging with other perspectives, we can create a more complete, more nuanced, and more accurate picture of reality. Can you embrace the subjectivity of truth, challenge your own assumptions, and seek out diverse perspectives? Are you ready to see the world through the eyes of others? Finally, we arrive at the most controversial and perhaps the most inspiring of Nietzsche's concepts, the Übermensch. How often is this term misunderstood, caricatured as a symbol of arrogance, a celebration of brute force, a justification for moral indifference? How often do we recoil from the idea of self-superiority, associating it with egoism, oppression, and a disregard for the well-being of others? This fear of appearing arrogant, this reluctance to embrace our own potential, can hold us back from achieving true self-mastery. It is tempting to remain within the confines of conventional morality, to conform to the expectations of society, to avoid the arduous task of self-overcoming. But Nietzsche's Übermensch is not a call for domination, but a vision of self-transformation, a celebration of human potential, a call to transcend our limitations and create our own values. The Übermensch is not a finished product, but a process, a constant striving to become more than we are, to overcome our weaknesses, and to affirm life in its totality. Man is a rope, Nietzsche wrote, tied between beast and overman, a rope over an abyss. This image captures the essence of the journey toward the Übermensch, a precarious balancing act, a constant struggle to rise above our animal instincts, to cultivate our higher faculties, and to create meaning in a world without inherent purpose. The Übermensch is not a being of superhuman strength or intellect, but a being of extraordinary self-discipline, courage, and creativity. They are the individuals who dare to challenge conventional morality, to create their own values, and to live in accordance with their own truth. Identify your own limitations and actively work to overcome them. Cultivate virtues such as courage, creativity, and self-discipline. Embrace the challenges that life throws your way and use them as opportunities for growth and self-discovery. For in the end, the journey toward the Übermensch is not about becoming superior to others, but about becoming the best version of yourself. Can you embrace the challenge of self-overcoming, cultivate your virtues, and strive to become the Übermensch that lies within you? Are you ready to walk the tightrope over the abyss? We have journeyed through the labyrinth of Nietzsche's thought, demystifying 5 core concepts that hold the key to radical intellectual independence. We have explored the will to power, not as a drive for domination, but as a force for self-overcoming. We have confronted the eternal recurrence, embracing the challenge of living a life worthy of infinite repetition. We have embraced Amor Fati, transforming suffering into strength and creative fuel. We have grappled with Perspectivism, recognizing the subjective nature of truth and cultivating intellectual humility. And we have contemplated the Übermensch, not as an arrogant superior, but as the embodiment of self-transcendence. But this journey is not over. In fact, it has only just begun. The path to radical intellectual independence is a lifelong pursuit, a constant process of learning, questioning, and self-overcoming. It requires a willingness to challenge your own assumptions, to confront uncomfortable truths, and to embrace the uncertainty of existence. Remember, Nietzsche's philosophy is not a set of doctrines to be blindly accepted, but a set of tools to be used, a framework for thinking critically, for creating your own values, and for living a life of purpose and meaning. Do not be afraid to experiment, to adapt these concepts to your own unique circumstances, and to forge your own path to self-discovery. Transform adversity into opportunity. Create your own values. Embrace the challenges that life throws your way and use them as fuel for your creative fire. Cultivate virtues such as courage, creativity, and self-discipline, and never stop questioning, never stop learning, never stop striving to become the best version of yourself. As Carl Jung, another explorer of the human psyche, reminds us, the journey of individuation, the process of becoming one's true self, is a complement to Nietzsche's philosophy of self-overcoming. It is a lifelong quest to integrate all aspects of our being, to reconcile our conscious and unconscious selves, and to live in accordance with our own unique truth. So embrace the challenge, embrace the uncertainty, and embrace the journey of self-discovery. The path to radical intellectual independence is not easy, but it is worth it. For in the end, the greatest reward is the freedom to think for yourself, to create your own values, and to live a life that is truly your own. Now, I ask you, are you ready to embrace Nietzsche's challenge and embark on your own journey of self-overcoming? Are you ready to forge your own path to radical intellectual independence? The choice is yours.